Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Ichigo Awakens in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 86, Regei Fights. With Yoriyuki. She made her way deeper into the forests of the North Rukon 68th district, following a lead to one of Aizen's abandoned labs. Shortly after Mayuri informed the head captain of Keijiroza's treachery, he requested the Wurikat's services. Identify who were still the real deal and who were switched out for fakes, and after doing that mission she sent him the information by Hell Butterfly, before tracking the location of where the real Shinigami were hidden. All of which led her to one of Aizen's abandoned labs, left to rot after finding that it was wiped clean 3 decades before Aizen's departure from Soul Society. She could feel some powerful Reishi, signifying a powerful barrier sealing Kido, emanating from the building. She took another step when her shoulder was pierced from behind. "Sorry, Lady Yoriyuki." Her assailant, revealing to be a Regei copy of her little B, said while readying a second strike. "But I have my orders." It would never find its mark, as neither did the first strike. All the fake Swaifon managed to hit was an afterimage of Yoriyuki. The real Yoriyuki flashed behind her protege's double and was about to release a devastating kick to her head, when a large spiked ball came flying toward her. Moving quickly, she vaulted over the mace as it came into arm's reach before grabbing onto the chain linking the ball to its hilt. The Regei of Swaifon already next to, a much improved version of Omada. With hair, more handsome, and muscles, it was a shame this was not the real Omada. "I think the only thing that threw me off here is that Swaifon would never let her lieutenant interfere in her fight." Yoriyuki taunted, not at all concerned with her opponents while settling into a combat stance. "You must be a failed copy if you need help." You also taught her, as leader of the Onmitsukido, to use every opportunity and advantage possible. The Regei said before the two disappeared, reappearing at her sides with their weapons ready. Yoriyuki twisted around Swaifon's spear hand and kicked Marekiyo's mace into the building, knocking down the front wall. Regei Swaifon spun herself and landed a hook kick on Yoriyuki's back, sending her to the ground. "Shunko!" The copy called out as she threw a punch down at the noble. "Not fast enough." Yoriyuki whispered as she disappeared, getting behind her B's Regei and slamming her fist into Regei Omada's stomach. The man coughed up bile as he dropped to the ground, with Swaifon appearing behind Yoriyuki again. "Shunko!" The Flash Goddess said, activating her own Flash War Cry, and deflecting Swaifon's attack. She followed it up with a heavy blow to the ground, while the Regei dodged. "You missed," she said with a smirk, side-kicking Yoriyuki through a tree and slamming against another one. "Maybe Keijiroza will reward with a more fitting Lady Yoriyuki after he gathers your data," she said, with a hopeful expression. Unaware that her partner was just killed. "There is only one of Lady Yoriyuki." The Regei heard her voice from behind, turning to see her original freed and the building she was meant to guard destroyed. The shock was short-lived as a Kido-infused hand pierced through her chest from behind. "Had to make sure I didn't hurt my precious bee," Yoriyuki said as her protege's Regei turned to dust around her arm. Swaifon immediately knelt before her mistress. "Lady Yoriyuki, I'm sorry for dash." She didn't even finish before said lady punched her on the head. "You better be sorry. I thought I taught you to always be on guard." The noble scolded before rubbing her friend's head. "Looks like I'll have to retrain you, just like old times." Inside, Swaifon was squealing like a little girl. "But first, stopping these Regei." "Right. The other Shinigami that were imprisoned have already begun their return to the Sirei. With Yamamoto." The old dragon twisted his cane about, Ichigo safely stashed in a secret location only he knew, and made his way to the stairway to where the repentance cell once was. It was a wide open area, with the other combatants doing their own thing, where the old man could really cut loose. He felt that old burn from his early days, and with the Quincy return coming, he needed to back into the flow of combat. His patience was soon rewarded when his opponents finally appeared. Regei copies of Kiraku, Yukatake, Anohana, Ishine, Komamura, and the one that he knew to be Keijiroza. "This is truly an arrogant act on your part, Keijiroza," Genri Yusai said as he faced his would-be opponents. "You know of the coming Quincy War, yet you would try to overthrow the Godei instead of adding to our might." The yellow-robed man wore a malicious grin as he let out a twisted laugh. "And who is the one responsible for this Quincy War, Yamamoto?" he returned, readying his reika while the Regei did the same. "But then again, how many of the problems that the Godei faced can be traced back to you? Aizen managing to get away with as much as he did before he defected, though Aizen was indeed careful about his actions. The Dark Ones trying to destroy both the world of the living and soul society, you let them live and let their hate grow in their exile. Kyuzaka, all because you turned a blind eye to the Central 40SIXS interference. The amnesia incident, how many hollows were in the Rukon that you never really addressed? The Kazumioji incident was because you chose to imprison yourself to an unjust system that kept you out of the affairs of nobility. The Zanpakuto rebellion, you should have killed Koga instead of sealing him away. Everything can be traced back to you and your weakness as a leader, and you should retire. But, there is no way I will ever bow before that abomination you call your student," he roared, pointing his blade forward to the old man. In response, Yamamoto thrust his cane forward and the Regei of Komamura blew apart, shocking Kage Rosa in turn. "I have indeed made many mistakes in my 2,000 years of service," the dragon said as his Haori flew off and his Shiakusho top fell, revealing his scarred and muscled body. "And I've grown complacent in my pursuit of preserving this time of peace. But do not mistake my poor judgment for weakness of body, as only the strongest Shinigami is meant to lead as the pillar of the Godei and Soul Society." He unleashed his Ryutsu and Kage Rosa was reminded just how powerful Genri Usai is. That flick of the wrist was a warning shot, boy. Run now, if you want to survive more than the next few seconds. He unsheathed his blade and created the ring of fire from releasing his Shikai. Komamura vs Swafon Regei. The war beast wandered about inside a bamboo forest in the Siridei, searching for one of these enemies that were trying to replace them. It was a natural strategy, aim for the lone animal away from the protection of the pack, so he let himself be the bait to lure his enemies. That, and his Zanpakuto always made for plenty of collateral damage to the surrounding area. No need to cause more damage to the city than necessary. He's been searching for a good while, until he sensed a presence coming from above. He managed to turn just in time to block a sword strike, coming from Swafon. A Regei from the way her eyes glowed. "Tenkan, thank you for making sure I trained for when I confront grandfather," the wolf said in thanks to his blade spirit, certain that he would have died in an instant otherwise. "So, you're Captain Swafon's copy. Then let me test my might against you," he roared, swinging his Zanpakuto down. The resulting shockwave splintered the bamboo trees and made the ground explode, all of which the nimble clone of the captain managed to avoid. She reappeared over the dust cloud, spinning a kick to Komamura's head. The massive wolf man caught the blow, grunting in exertion from the strength of the attack, before twisting and throwing her away from him. As she flipped around to bounce off a bamboo stalk, Seijin released his Shikai. "Tenkan!" he roared, swinging the spectral blade down as she jumped off the stalk and into his blade. The ground shook and exploded from the force of his blow, leaving a massive gash in the earth with a thick cloud of dust. His ears pricked up as he heard quick-moving footsteps to his side, turning to block but was quickly stabbed in the stomach with the Regei's own Suzumibuki. Grunting from the pain, he instead chose to focus on his opponent while she was in arm's length. Before the Regei could get away, he grabbed her head in a crushing grip and threw his arm upward, pulling Swafon's Regei along with it and throwing her at the ground. He then jumped away and conjured the other arm of his Tenkan's power, the flaming bolus. Wasting no time, he spun them as fast as he could before shooting fireball after fireball down at Swafon's location. Each blast grew bigger and bigger as he rained down the attack. The Regei, as it turned out, managed to escape and get behind him, having some nasty burns as a result. Komamura, having learned from the last time, managed to keep track of her Reishi and swing his blade the moment she was in range. The battle ended as the two halves of the Regei crumbled into dust. "I wasted too much energy in this fight," he thought, panting from exhaustion. He turned to the burning forest, thinking on how much he wasted in this battle. With Yamamoto. The flames grew with rage and intensity, fueled by Yamamoto's own Reishi, as the battle began. The Regei of Ishin charged straight at the old dragon, his Injutsu flaring with his own fire and power, as he fired a Getsuga at the head captain. The Reishi attack was cut in twain with a single swing of Yamamoto's blade, making the two halves pass him harmlessly. In front of Yamamoto, he saw a blade coming out of his shadow that was made from his hind's fire. He barely dodged the attack, getting a cut from his chest to his collarbone, before grabbing onto the blade and ripping Shunsui out of it. He made another swing to kill another of the Regei, slamming a burning blade into Kirako's chest and sending him flying in a fireball. Yukatake stuck one of his Zanpakuto into the flames, absorbed it, and redirected at the head captain. He got ready to deflect it, when he heard Anohana finish her Kido spell. Bakudo number 99, Kin. She called out, wrapping up Yamamoto and pinning his arms behind him. The fire slammed into him, roasting him in its heat, but ultimately did not affect the man that mastered those flames. Before the torrent of flames ended, the ancient captain swept them aside as he burst from the fire, and then stabbed his blade into the ground. Enetsu Jigoku. The dragon whispered, a red glyph drawing itself out on the ground as he channeled his power into it. Anohana's Regei seemed to recognize the attack and leaped forward, drawing her blade with the intent to cut down the dragon. The moment she was in front of him, 7 pillars of flame erupted from the earth. 6 surrounding the combatants and 1 burning Anohana to ash instantly. Is this really the best you impostors have? He asked with Kage Rosa standing out of the battle but trapped by the fire, trembling with rage and fear. With Hitsugaya. The moment the Garganta opened to Soul Society, Halabel flew off with the intention of finding her king, leaving the Shinigami that came from the world of the living to try to find their own purpose in this battle. Each one felt a different battle raging and either paired off or went on their own, Urahara leaving each one with minor Regei scanner. Toshiro Hitsugaya went his own way, looking to find and confirm Momo's safety. She may have been improving as a lieutenant and a Soul Reaper, but Toshiro still couldn't help but worry. As he charged forward he noticed the other battles raging around him, most prominent being the flames of Ryujinjaka, which distracted him into almost getting hit by a fireball. You. Prove your captain Toshiro Hitsugaya. The young captain looked down to see Amagai with Ikeku and Yumi Chika, all 3 glaring and ready for combat. How can we tell you are not a Regei? Amagai demanded, pointing his released Reika at the captain. Toshiro was on guard and trying to figure a way out of this dilemma, how to prove that he's the real one when his doppelganger was already destroyed back in the world of the living. Then he got an idea, if he couldn't prove it sufficiently then he could turn it back on them. How do I know you're not Regei? Toshiro suddenly asked, making the trio look to themselves with short glances. Bankai. Toshiro quickly said, getting covered in a thick mist before gaining his frozen wings and starting the pedal countdown to his true power. Well? How do I know you 3 are the real ones of you? Amagai raised up his arms, showing his wrists. We don't have those bracelets that the Regei wear. What about you? He returned, putting the focus back on Toshiro. It's believed that those bracelets were limiters and that Kage Rosa likely had them broken to unleash the full power of the Regei. Hitsugaya returned, deciding to look at his Regei scanner that was mounted on his wrist. It revealed 4 Regei, the 3 in front and the 1 right behind him. The sudden appearance of the one behind him stunned the ice captain long enough for the Regei to run him through. Thankfully for Toshiro, the ice provided him with enough time to dodge before the blade bit into his flesh. The difference between life and death, measured in 1/10 of a second. You should have just stayed still. Toshiro heard his own voice say, coming face to face with another Regei of him, likewise in Bankai. It would have been so much easier on you if you did. Hitsugaya's mind was racing, didn't his Regei die already, were there multiple copies of him, how many others had multiple Regei copies of themselves? This had taken a bad situation and made it worse, some of the Regei were meant to be stronger than their originals and there are likely many more of them. Hitsugaya was pulled out of his thoughts when Amagai threw another fireball, slamming against one of the frozen wings. The heat from that attack is melting my form. He noticed as Amagai threw more fireballs, one after the other. Damn my still immature power. Toshiro aimed to fly away, before his ankle was wrapped in glowing vines from Yumi Chika and leaving him vulnerable. The Regei took advantage of the chance and attacked, Ikeku and Hitsugaya cutting at the captain with Amagai continuing his burning assault and Yumi Chika draining Reishi. Toshiro had to quickly block with sword and icy wing, regenerating the damage done to his dragon form, while feeling the drain of his Reishi. He froze his ankle, and the vine with it, while trying to gather the moisture in the air for something he hoped would turn the tide. Unfortunately, his Regai seemed to understand what he was planning. Hayat and Hayakaso. His Regai said, causing the snowfall of the technique. Toshiro tried to flee, but more vines wrapped around him and drained more of his Reishi. The captain could only watch helplessly as the snow dropped on him, sprouting ice flowers that soon engulfed his entire being. You were never able to protect anyone, let alone Momo. The Regai of Toshiro mocked. Leave her to me, she'll be fine. Captain Hitsugaya. Amagai spoke up, gaining the Regai's attention, to find that they were surrounded by massive pillars of ice. Zanhyo Ninjo? When? The Regai demanded just before the pillars began to converge on them rapidly. Bankai. Reika Gon Keiku. Amagai roared, gaining his massive blade while Ikeku did the same. They began their own assault against the ice, Amagai melting with his blade and Ikeku breaking the ice with his, and Yumi Chika uses Kido while Hitsugaya wrestles with control over the ice. The battle soon ends with the ice pillars falling apart, but before they could breathe a sigh of victory, they all froze instantly. Getting faster at getting rid of those petals. An older Hitsugaya said, watching the frozen Regai fall and shatter on the ground. But not fast enough. With Yamamoto. Yamamoto recognized the ache of combat as he continued to clash with the Regai, constantly dodging and blocking attacks coming from all around him with Kiraku, having his flames redirected back to him from Yukatake, and the brute power from his Hine. To his benefit, with the Regai Anohana gone, they would be unable to heal and recover. This was a battle of attrition, but 3 Captain-class Shinigami was still wearing on the old dragon. Even as a Regai, his Hine is headstrong and dives into battle. He thought as the Regai in question tried to fire a Getsuga at the dragon, only for Yamamoto to bat the blade aside and deflect the destructive wave of Reishi. From above, Shunsui appeared and was about to swing one of his blades. Takeanai. Yamamoto thought, identifying the game that the Regai was playing. In response, he quickly jumped higher than the Regai and swung his blade down, only for it to pass through an afterimage. Kajiokuri. He thought in surprise as the real Regai appeared beneath him, ready to attack. Irony, black. The Regai said before he made contact with Yamamoto's foot, kicking the blade aside and Shunsui with it. The old man slightly winced as he felt the damage from the amount of black he wore, but minimized it from not letting it contact his black clothing. Teimatsu. He growled before swinging his blade and unleashing a torrent of flames at the Regai. Once again, Yukatake appeared to absorb the attack. As he did, Yamamoto flashed behind the Regai. White. Ikotsu. He said, just before punching a hole through Yukatake's back. And then there were 3. With the Kenpakus. When Yamamoto made the announcement for Zaraki to cut loose, he and Anohana went out for a stroll. She undid her braid and was in her Yachiro state while Zaraki had his eye patch off, both had their blades ready to carve into their opponents. Their hunt was fruitful as they came across their Regai, both as ready as the originals. The 4 Kenpakus stood there, analyzing their respective opponents, and their worth as enemies. Well, this is new. Zaraki quietly said, earning a raised eyebrow from Anohana. I'm not sure what to do. Do I take them both myself, do I let you have one, do I kill my Regai and leave the other for us to have some special fun? He voiced, earning an understanding nod from his wife. I've had much the same thoughts. She said, raising her blade. How about we see if they can even survive being our playmates? She asked with a dark grin, earning a savage one from her husband just before the 2 sides charged at each other. The Zarakus released a thunderous clang as their blades collided while the Yachiris moving swiftly in a lethal dance. Zaraki's usual reckless abandon sharply contrasted with Anohana's fast movements, releasing an awkward symphony of fast-paced clings and heavy clangs from the 2 fights. Heido number 88, Hiryogekazokushitan Reiho. The Regai Anohana shot at the real one, who dodged and flashed directly into her Regai's guard. She took out a pair of daggers while getting into a sword lock, ready to plunge the blades into her Regai's throat. The two had to jump away from each other when the Regai Zaraki released his Shikai and brought it down between the two before trying to split Zaraki in half. The cleaver came down with ground-shattering force, but Zaraki caught the blade before it made contact with him. Is this? The Regai tried to pull the blade away but it wouldn't budge. How strong Cage Rosa thinks I am. Zaraki pulled on the blade before gripping the axe haft, lifting the Regai before throwing him to a wall. I know I've held back, but I don't recall being so weak. Zaraki roared before throwing the copy of no Zarashi back to the Regai. The clone punched the axe blade off its lethal course and caught it safely, ready to fight again. Bakudo number 62, Hyaporin Kan. Anohana's Regai called out before throwing a barrage of light poles down at Zaraki, with the real one appearing behind her husband to deflect every single pole of the spell. Heido number 90, Kuro Hitsuji. Yachiro quickly cast, trapping her Regai in the black box. Suddenly, a furry beast attacked her while a large skeleton picked up the black coffin and broke it apart. Zaraki appeared above the skeleton with no Zarashi out and slammed the blade down on the creature's skull, shattering the entire construct. Yachiro herself quickly cut through the furry creature's body and made it dissipate as well, leaving the two Kenpakus with their Regai doubles once again. The Regai of Anohana readied herself to cast another spell and Yachiro flashed toward her with her blade raised. Her Regai dodged but Zaraki's, her actual target, was cut across his gut, nearly in half. No. The Regai Anohana cried out, having as much care for her lover as the original does for hers. That second of distraction was her doom as Zaraki brought his axe down on her. The two Regai crumbled into dust as the two Kenpakus sealed and sheathed their blades. Never mind what I was thinking. Zaraki scoffed, looking at the mod souls as they crumbled to dust. They were too fragile. Let's find the rest. I'm still unsatisfied. Yachiro said as they continued their hunt. With Yamamoto. With the threat of Yuka out of the way, Yamamoto unleashed even greater flames and was more aggressive. The fire was so hot that the buildings were burning to ash and the clouds dissipated from the scorching heat. Anohana was integral to them to last longer because of the healing skill and Yuka could reflect his fire back at him, thus they had to be crushed as soon as possible. With those two gone, then Genryusai could stop being as cautious as he was. Kiraku's games still kept him on his toes, but the Regai couldn't get too close without getting burned in his Hein's own fire. Zanpakuto was the only thing that kept him from getting vaporized. It seems Cage Rosa is trying to retreat. The dragon noted as he saw Cage Rosa opening a portal with his Reiku. A quick flare of his Ryujinjaka forced the man away from his portal. In an effort to confine the man, the fires soon constricted into a shrinking dome. Jokakuinjo. You will not escape from here so easily, Cage Rosa. He growled, glaring at the man that's caused such a disturbance in Soul Society. That was when he sensed someone coming up from behind him, despite Kiraku and his Hein being in front of him. Trusting his senses, he spun at the last second and dodged a stab from the Regai of Shunsui. Kajio Kuri and Diruma Sanjie Karanda. An afterimage to distract me and trying to hit my blind spot. Katen Kyokotsu's supposed to be more moody, more hints of Cage Rosa's meddling. He grabbed onto the Regai and swung his blade, cutting his opponent in half from just under the shoulders. Now, time to end this. The dragon said, facing his final Regai foe. West Rukon District, Plains area. Rukia was visiting her family in the Shiba clan when Yamamoto made the call about the Regai. Since then, she's been keeping to an out-of-the-way area so as not to disturb the civilians of the Rukon district. She's had her Shirayaki at the ready and just waited, for an opponent, her allies, pretty much anything or anyone. Suddenly she felt someone coming up from behind, turning to find Rangiku appearing at the edge of the field. Rukia. The 10th lieutenant called out, flashing closer to the icy vizard. Good to see that you're okay. The moment she was within blade's reach, Rukia held her sword to the girl's throat. The shocked lieutenant held her hands up and backed away a couple inches. Prove you're the real Rangiku. Rukia demanded, glaring at the girl she suspected was a doppelganger. Considering that these people were meant to replace them, it stood to reason that they were copies of themselves. With that in mind, she needed proof before trusting anyone anymore. The maybe Rangiku thought for a moment before getting an idea. Remember that night when Captains Zaraki and Anohana got married? How we had some fun with our dear Ichigo? She asked rather suggestively, all of which was pretty accurate to Rangiku. Rukia was about to drop her guard when she heard Sode no Shiraiki's voice call out to her. She's not real, Hanko's spirit is not with her. Rukia didn't stop her blade's descent, but she did draw a circle with a flick of her wrist at the base of the now confirmed Regei's feet. Tsukishiro, she said, using her power to create a massive pillar of ice where the Regei stood. The Regei knew her cover was blow when Rukia's hand made that twirl and managed to avoid the attack, just before the ice formed. As she did, Rukia appeared behind her with her mask on. Hakuren! She shouted, unleashing her freezing torrent at the Regei and forcing her to dodge again. Growl, Hanko! The fake Rangiku called out as her blade turned to dust, swinging at Rukia and forcing the wizard to move. Bakudo number 63, Seijo Sabaku. The Regei yelled, clenching her fist and wrapping Rukia up in glowing yellow chains. She was about to make another swing when another chain wrapped around her and a blade was held to her neck. I'd appreciate it if you didn't hurt my sister wife. Another Rangiku said, ready to cleave the head off of her opponent when she felt a sudden chill around her. A pillar of ice appeared almost instantly after Rukia tackled her out of the way, with another Rukia coming in from the edge of the field. Thanks for the save, Rukia, she said as they got up and faced their opponents. Before either could do anything, they were enveloped in a grey cloud of moving steel dust. Nico Rinbyu, my Regei surrounded us in a swirling ball of death. Rangiku warned her companion, who seemed to be focusing elsewhere. Suddenly, her masked face turned to where Rangiku's Regei was and started her second dance. Tsuji no Mai, she said as a whitish-blue ball of Reishi formed at the tip of her sword, Siro Hakuren. She shouted before thrusting forward, dissipating the cloud of ash and colliding with another wave of ice before easily dominating it. The other Rukia was struggling to maintain her attack, with the Regei of Rangiku shocked but recovering to attack. The real Rangiku didn't allow that as she manifested Hanko behind the Regei. The Zanpakuto spirit quickly disabled the clone of her master and restrained her as Rukia's Siro-infused Hakuren consumed her Regei in ice. The pair took a breath of relief with Rukia marching over to finish the fake Rangiku, only for the real Rangiku to stop her. That's enough, Rukia, she said, looking at her copy. There are plans for any Regei we can recover. Rukia looked at her companion, who was uncharacteristically serious. You're planning a three-way with Ichigo consisting of you and your copy, aren't you? She asked, earning a blush and giggle from Rangiku. Four-way actually. I had another me in the world of the living, she admitted, making Rukia sigh. Pervert, she said. Damn. Why didn't I think of that? She thought. With Yamamoto. It was no longer a battle, it was evident that the old dragon had won the battle. While his Zenjutsu flames gave him some protection, Yamamoto's fire was even stronger. Ishine was indeed a strong man, but Yamamoto was stronger. Everything that Ishine had to challenge the ancient dragon was proven futile in the face of the man that led the Shinigami. Getsuga Tensho, he roared, unleashing the wave of Reishi at Yamamoto, and the dragon merely cut it in half. He tried flashing away, only for Yama to appear in front of him and punch him back into the ground. The Regei was groaning in pain as he forced himself back up. If he had anything that made him like Ishine, it was the stubbornness of the Shiba man. Unfortunately for him, with no need to hold back or be as careful, Yamamoto was just moments away from ending the fight. This ends now, the dragon said in that gravely voice as he passed by the man, sheathing his blade. Before the Regei could protest, all features faded and it fell in two before crumbling to dust. In front of Yamamoto was a long gash in the ground that slowly formed. Perhaps using that Nadegiri was going too far, he thought before turning his attention to Kage Rosa, who had already managed to escape. That fool thinks he can escape. He gripped his Zanpakuto tightly before sensing an appearance of two Aaron-Kar, turning to find a dark-skinned woman standing with a man with a Van Dyke beard. Is Ichigo with you? The female Aaron-Kar asked, Yamamoto just now recognizing her as Halibel. He is, he admitted, not revealing where. And he is safe, despite Kage Rosa's efforts. That man dared to attack Mirai. How dare he? the man said with shock before turning to rage. I, Dordoni Alessandro del Socaccio, will deliver judgment on him. He said before running off, already on the scent of Cage Rosa. I swear, that fool practically worships Ichigo. The shark said before bowing to Yamamoto. Please keep our king safe. This is our burden now. She said before disappearing herself. Vizard fight. Rose was visiting Love, catching up on their manga, when the call came out. The captains pulled out their masks in preparation, with regai of almost each member of their old Vizard group appearing. It was the two of them against a copy of themselves, Shinji, Kensei, Mashiro, Hiyori, and Lisa, outnumbering them 7-2. The exception was Hachigen, and the absence of the Kido master was not a good sign. Was he hiding somewhere, or doing a separate mission? There seemed to be no good possibility. You jerks, I was just getting to the good part. Love said, cracking his neck in preparation for the fight. The main character was finally about to find out which one was his promised girl. You're reading Nisekoi, Love. Rose pointed out, unleashing his whip. There was going to be a cliffhanger instead. Just like always. The regai summoned their shikai, except for Shinji who already had his out, and the two sides charged at each other. Before the two Vizards could prepare their attacks, the world turned upside down and their enemies were getting further away. Or that's what it seemed as they were soon cut, bashed, and blasted by their opponents, slamming against the ground. Shinji's inverted world technique. Love growled, the pair getting up as their regeneration healed them. That bastard did his homework, didn't he? He was about to say something else, but they had to raise their weapons to block an oncoming attack from the regai Hiyori and Mashiro. Surprisingly they succeeded in blocking the attacks, shocking both sides. Too bad they aren't as strong as us. They heard coming from above them as Shinji, Kensei, and Mashiro appeared, all wearing masks. I cancelled out their inversion with my own, Shinji explained while Kensei circled around the regai and swung his blade about wildly. Let's finish this quickly. The rest nodded as a dome of razor air blade trapped the regai. The Vizards all raised their hands and charged their Zero Blasts. Mashiro's was a kick, and Kensei got out of the way as the combined blast gouged the land and vaporized the regai. I better make sure that didn't kill any civilians. Love said after seeing the carnage and leaving to do just that. The rest just stood about awkwardly. This seemed a little disappointing, hasn't it? Shinji earning a shrug from Rose. I guess it stands to reason that regai can't use hollow Reishi. He said, remembering just how new hollowification studies are. Inside the Kido core. Maximum security storage. Two figures made their way through the forbidden section of the most dangerous area in Soul Society's relic storage. In here one would be able to find a wall lined with stone tablets, blocked by glowing Kido spell seals, each one holding a map to the location of an artifact deemed too dangerous to be left alone. However, one artifact was still in this room. The one these two came for, quite possibly the most dangerous one in the wrong hands. The Hogyaku, the target of the two as they stepped into the amber glow of the many Kido seals. There it is. The smaller figure said, revealing himself to be Tessai Tsukabishi. With that, Master Keijiroza's plans will no longer be restrained by the need for that stubborn girl. The regai said as he and his partner, the regai of Hachigen Ushoda, got closer to the seal before stopping a few feet from it. Commander Tessai. Haki started as Tessai knelt down and waved his hand, revealing a complex seal on the ground. That's a powerful one. Many forbidden spells layered together. We were expecting this when we came down here. They wouldn't let something like that be unguarded. He said as the two got to undoing the seals. They got through one before their heads were trapped in transparent blue boxes that turned red and separated their heads from their necks, causing their bodies to crumble to dust. An orange door appeared as the real Haki came out to recover the mod souls. Another two Haki? Tessai asked, coming down with another pair of regai of the Kido masters. Smart of that guy to send two teams. How bad is the seal damaged? Just the first one, immobilization. The large man said as he got about to repairing the seal. Maybe we should leave a warning that this is for their safety. He said, turning to where the Hogyaku was locked away. The last person that got too close was devoured by that thing. With Cage Rosa. Damn, damn, damn. The clone thought as he sped as fast as he could away from the monster that was Yamamoto. How could I have miscalculated so badly? He thought that the Godai relied on Ichigo too much and they grew weaker as a result. He thought that he correctly gauged the powers and abilities of the other Soul Reapers. He forgot that even though Ichigo did take much of the burden for almost every major conflict occurrence, the rest of the court guard squads made sure to train themselves as much as they could. He thought that they'd still fight with honor and pride. Soul Society was now in the mentality of win. Not graciously win, just win. They were out and ready to fight and kill any that disturbed what Yamamoto built with the original Godai. Going somewhere? Anciano. He heard before a white-clad leg slammed into his face. The moment he regained his footing, he found a short, hollowed blade at his neck. That is so rude, and we came all this way just to find you. Dordoni said, waving his hands about while shaking his head. Arrancar. We really have sunk so low as to recruit creatures like you? I figured they were joking. Cage Rosa said, slightly turning before the blade pressed against his neck. Mod souls were deemed too inhumane or too dangerous, but mutating the soul with Hollow Reishi or gifting hollows with the powers of the Soul Reaper while my research was to be destroyed. He growled, glaring at the pair before quickly spinning his Reiku. Where's the justice or sense in that? He roared before escaping Halibel's captivity and gaining some distance from the two. Why did he have to suffer? He cried out, getting behind Dordoni and aimed to cut him from behind. Hola Azul. Halibel calmly called out as she fired an energy blade at Cage Rosa. The Regai master managed to raise his blade to block, but that gave Dordoni plenty of time to counterattack. The man slid closer to his enemy and kicked him as hard as he could into the center of the man's torso, causing Cage Rosa to lose all the air in his lungs. As he stumbled to regain his footing, he felt a blade stab into the base of his spine and sever it. His legs buckled from underneath him, now useless and paralyzed from the damage. We can stomach hate aimed at us. Halibel said, walking over to his sword hand before stomping on his wrist. We already were considered expendable by our previous master. Dordoni continued as he took Cage Rosa's Reiku away. But our king offers us hope, a future, and his love for his people. Reiku reverted to its cane form, which Dordoni stabbed into Cage Rosa's other hand. We Arrancar love our lord, love Ichigo, for giving us that. You insulted our king, Halibel resumed, wanted to threaten him at his most vulnerable. She and Dordoni gripped his arms and shattered his shoulders, ignoring his screams of pain as they did so. To us, that is punishable by death. But, lucky you, Kisukura convinced us to take you in alive. He and Mayuri have ideas. The mastermind behind the Regai could only whimper and tremble in fear and outrage as the Arrancar dragged him back to face judgment. Chapter 87, Cloned Aftermath. Mayuri's Playground. A week had passed since the Regai uprising and the damage from the fighting was undone. Peace and order had returned to the Siriti and Rukon districts as everyone got back to what was really important, preparing for the blood war. All capable fighters were working themselves to the bone to improve their skills. Renji was sparring with Byakuya to master his true Bankai, Ikeku, and Yumichika sparred against Zaraki, Rukia and Rangiku starting working to attain their Bankai. All around the Godai had people either honing their skills or working to attain their final release. Despite the grim preparations, everyone was able to wear a smile on their faces for now. No one could hear the screams of agony as Mayuri drove needles into Cage Rosa's skull. HNNNAAAAAHG. The man screamed as his torment continued, the needle piercing through his skull like it wasn't there and into his brain, unable to move from Ashisagi Jizo's paralysis after they disabled Inaba's immunity to Mayuri's Zanpakuto and all the restraints to keep him in place. He figured he'd be imprisoned, executed, something other than this horrific torture at Mayuri's hands. Stop being such a baby. Mayuri scolded as he finished inserting the 10th needle, all of which were attached to a computer that he went back to. You'd think with all the tinkering you've done, you would have at least done some of your own neurosurgery on yourself. He clicked away at his computer, analyzing page after page of data as it came pouring in. What little the man could move was tensed up as electricity surged through him. We would have gotten to this sooner, but the captains took forever to come to a decision. "What are you talking about?" Inaba asked, struggling through the pain while Mayuri continued to toy with him. It would just be a simple matter of sentencing him to death for treason, no need to extend it. But then he remembered the core factor, the reason the Godai has gotten more lenient on whatever may be useful. So, it finally clicked, did it? Mayuri asked, knowing the answer. Yes, be glad. Your original self's aim to complete his research will be completed, Project Spearhead will be revived. He stepped away from the monitors to grab another of his needles. Unfortunately, you will have to be put down. Wait. I can help. I will help. This is NNNYAAAGH. He pleaded as Mayuri drove another one into his brain. I can be of use. He panted out as Mayuri returned to the computer. That's not necessary. Especially since your other half is far more trustworthy. The sadist smiled as the data flowed into his machine, finishing the retrieval of the Precipice World data. Now he could start with the Mod Soul and Reggae data. During the last week, we've investigated Oko Yushima and yourself. He saved his research in the Danga and separated his mind into two, creating you and Nozomi Kyujo. So, it's been decided that I'd isolate all the data you've collected, all the knowledge, and salvage anything useful from you, and then we'd transfer all of that into Nozomi Kyujo if she chooses to be cooperative. If not, well, we still have the data necessary. It'd just be more of a hassle. He grabbed a few more needles. But till then, I'm allowed to do whatever I deem necessary to secure the data from you. And I deem you suffer. He smiled sadistically before slowly plugging a few more into his head, never once letting Keijiro's screams distract him as he drained his mind while carrying out the man's punishment. Hueco Mundo, Kingdom of Las Noches. Jin and Urahara silently watched Senna and Nozomi trade blows with each other. After the Trace Bestias spirited the Mod Soul to Las Noches and reported the situation to Jin, the man had an insatiable curiosity about the girl. So he attacked her, provoked her, toyed with her mind until she managed to summon her own Zanpakuto and fight back. Since then, he's had her train with the Aaron car in order to bring out more of her latent abilities. You're half of a Shinigami. The fox remember telling her as Senna shot a bolt of electricity at the verdette. Your other half had Ishikai, you most likely do as well. Show us the power you possess. Prove your worth. Nozomi held out her blade, a broadsword with a stubbed cross tip, and absorbed the Reishi in the attack before reflecting it back. He was a firm believer in emotional stress bringing out the true power in someone, and the results showed. It wasn't until Senna came by that she started talking to others again. Something about an existence not meant to be that brought the two together. She's making good progress. Urahara said, checking his phone as it buzzed. And construction on the new underground transport system and Reishi beacon seemed to be going well. Those exequias are really useful for manual labor. Rudborn hasn't had much to do. Same with Runenganga. Jin responded before jumping down. Okay, that's enough you two. He called out, causing Senna and Nozomi to stop. That's enough. You're making good progress. He complimented as the two walked by, Nozomi making a point to stomp on his foot as she did. I deserved that, I guess. Well Nozomi, I just got word back from Mayuri. The scientist said as he got in front of the Mod Soul. Should you accept it, you will take over Keijiro's old position in Squad 12 and continue Oko Yoshima's work with Project Spearhead. I understand that you may have some reservations about this, so the choice is yours. Nozomi's expression did not change, but those eyes told him that her mind was working overtime. Complete my research. The words of her original self echoed in her heart and mind. All she wanted was to stop Keijiro's, to end his dark ambitions of revenge and conquest, but without him she had no more reason to run. Her only goal that she could claim was actually hers was gone. Now, here it was, the chance to follow Yoshima's goal, but it was presented to her as her own choice. Does she take it? Would doing so make it her own goal and not Yoshima's? She looked over to Senna, who merely smiled at her with that carefree grin. Flashback. I do know what that's like. She said after Nozomi told her about how she came into being. I was originally the comprised memories of thousands of souls that got lost on their journey to the Soul Society. Sometimes, I would go from childhood to marriage to dying in my teens. From having a loving family to an abusive household. I couldn't tell who I was, aside from only two things. My choice to die and save the world from a dimensional collapse, and falling in love with my lieutenant at the time. So, what would you say? How do I know I'm making my own choices? She asked, getting a joy-filled smile in response. I just stopped thinking about that and did whatever. It's my life now, so why waste it worrying about such things? Flashback end. I guess I only have one option. Nozomi muttered before facing Urahara with a look of confidence. I may be the lighter half of Oko Yushima, but I am my own person. I won't take on his research and continue his legacy. I will go beyond that, she declared, placing her hand to her chest. I am Nozomi Kyujo. I am my own person. Ichigo's inner world. The hybrid was training, non-stop, for an entire week. An entire week of endless nightmares and horrors in Ichigo's mind as Kyoka Suijutsu attacked him. The mirror pool had no ripples and Ichigo was blocking every actual strike from the illusory blade amid the swirling vortex of blades that came at him. Unwavering focus as he kept the soul image of Kyoka Suijutsu in his sight while the visions beneath were crushed by his own clear visualizations. What started as barely maintainable surprises now turned to full-fledged hypnotic illusions, as was the result of this training. A full week of nothing but this training as it got more and more difficult until now. That should be enough. Zanjutsu thought, having long since finished healing Ichigo from Hell's toxic power while letting his master train in his new abilities. Ichigo. Kyoka. He called out, getting the two to stop their sparring. Good news, the damage is now undone. You can wake up whenever. The hybrid spirit informed his wielder. Ichigo himself looked to Kyoka, who gave an smile and a nod to let him know that it was okay. Thanks for taking care of that, Zanjutsu. I should return before they face another crisis. Ichigo said jokingly, thinking back to how almost every other week was a new problem that needed fixing. I better not have missed a damn thing. He suddenly growled, coming up with worst-case scenarios in his mind before disappearing. Think he'll calm down after seeing that Soul Society isn't in flames without him to protect it. The female version of Aizen said, looking over to her fellow Zanpakuto spirit. Meh, he'll get over it. Yamamoto's office. In the week since the Regei incident, neither Arrancar left him alone. One was always near him, standing vigilant for the sole purpose of protecting the one Yamamoto had in his care. Their still slumbering king. The longest either of them had been away was the woman Halibel, speaking with Mayuri about something and was gone for half a day. Now both stood behind him, eyes glued to the doors, windows, and Ichigo's stasis pod. Suddenly, that same pod began beeping wildly away, with Ririka barging in shortly after. Give me Ichigo now. She shouted, sniffing up a small handful of dust. Remembering how her powers work, Yamamoto threw Ichigo's pod to her. She managed to catch it and opened it up, just an instant before sneezing. With that done, Ichigo was freed from the pod and grew to his full size, covering in spit and snot. Thank you, Ririka. Ichigo said, staying calm but clearly annoyed as he wiped his face. I'll be sure to repay the favor. Ririka blushed before running off. I wonder what kind of plushie I should get. He thought, knowing the kind of thoughts he put into the Foolbringer's head. He then noticed the two Arrancar kneeling before him. Dordoni, Halibel. Did I miss something? Just a minor inconvenience, Ichigo, nothing more. The old dragon said, choosing to keep the Regei matter as just that. A minor inconvenience. When they heard that you were in a coma, they elected to come here and watch over you. I gave them permission to do so. Why should I deny them their service to their king? Ichigo turned to the Arrancar, keeping their heads bowed as they waited their lord's word. Thank you. Both of you. He said, reaching down to raise their heads and see his smiling face. I am grateful for your concern and I shall be sure to reward you when next I'm in Hueco Mundo. They all rose to their feet as Ichigo opened a garganta. Now, return to Las Noches and think about what you would like as a reward. So long as it's within my power, I shall grant it. The two bowed their heads as they departed. Okay master, what really dash, Ichigo was about to say when instantly, Yamamoto's blade was inches from decapitating the hybrid. A large shockwave of force created a cloud of dust, debris, and paper, all of which was slowly settling. When it finally did, Yamamoto's blade was resting against Ichigo's sealed zanjutsu, and the boy's expression did not change in the slightest. The blades stopped, millimeters from clashing at full force. What really happened? Never dropped your guard for even a moment. Yamamoto thought approvingly as he sheathed his blade. What else is there to teach you, my pupil? Like I said, a minor inconvenience. Just some fool that thought that the goatee had grown weak, lazy, and vulnerable without you around. It was taken care of, don't worry about it. He went back to his desk, Ichigo cleaning his office as he did so. Why not head back home and spend some time with your family before going to Las Noches for the night? He said, giving Ichigo his leave to enjoy himself. Thank you, sensei. I think I will. Ichigo returned with a smile before flashing away. With nothing to do, Yamamoto went back to his paperwork. That boy seems to have mastered all you have to teach him, hasn't he? A familiar voice spoke out, making Yamamoto look up to see Ichigo Hyasub grinning down at him. Though, what he needs to learn next is not something you or I can teach. What do you have in mind, old friend? Genri Yusai asked the still grinning man. World of the living. For the first time in a long while, Ichigo had the chance to relax. First off, he went home to see his family, have a nice meal, and bid his goodbye to an old friend. He never got around to it, never had the time to do it. He had to save his sisters, defeat Aizen, stabilize his new rule in Hueco Mundo, go to hell, and recover from that trip. He can't even remember when he heard about Khan's death. After dinner he stayed in front of that small shrine, reflecting on his memories with Khan, thanking him for always looking after his sisters, and wishing that he could have had one more adventure. Maybe sneak him into the girls' locker room just once for his sake. But the perverted mod soul is gone now, and Ichigo knew he'd never want another one. He also knew that he'd need a new one anyway. He was emotionally pained, not stupid. Goodbye, Khan. Wherever you are, I'm sure you are nestled in between a beautiful pair of breasts. Ichigo said, finishing his farewell. It's what you would have wanted. He got up, finding that Yuzu and Karen had stayed with him, watching over their brother to make sure he took the loss well enough. He sighed, smiling at the now sleeping duo as he picked them both up to carry to their bedroom. Once he laid them to rest, he saw flashes out of the window. Looking closer, he found that they were mainly centered around the Funtfeld that Ichigo and Uriah showed the spiriters. What the hell? He asked seconds before his phone began to buzz, with Uriah calling him. He quickly left the room and answered. Ichigo, do you see those flashes at the Funtfeld? The Quincy asked, getting an affirmative from his cousin. That's Morse code. Ichigo checked again and noticed that it was indeed quick flashes and long lights. The Sternritters are being watched. Why Waka's got them under harsher scrutiny. Did you master that hypnosis skill yet? Yeah. Should we go? Ichigo asked, going Soul Reaper and grabbing Kyoka Suijutsu. Keep your Ryutsu suppressed and move fast. I'll meet you there. Uriah said before hanging up. It took the pair barely a minute before reaching the area and scouted the area. It took some searching, but they found someone new among the group of Quincy, a man with chin-length black hair that was combed back with a strand hanging in front of his face. He wore baggy pants with a white t-shirt and brown jacket, sitting in the tree branches like he was about to take a nap as the spiriters sparred against each other. Ichigo kept an eye on him while Uriah searched a little longer to confirm that there was no one else. Focus. Time it just right. Ichigo thought as he unsheathed Kyoka Suijutsu, watching the man and waiting for his chance. The moment the man's eyes shut, time slowed to a crawl for the hybrid. He launched himself to pass in front of the man, keeping the blade as visible as possible as he did so. The moment he was in front of him, the man's eyes opened. Shatter, Kyoka Suijutsu. Ichigo whispered quickly before vanishing from sight. The process measured in a millisecond, now to test the trap. The unknown man looked around, eyes passing by Ichigo and Uriah a couple of times, as he searched. Everything okay, Iskin? Bazby asked the man, stopping the training the Quincy were doing. Soon, the now named skin swatted the air in front of him. Yeah. Just a mosquito. Continue. He said, leaning back and watching the group. Ichigo and Uriah locked eyes and nodded. Skin was under Ichigo's hypnosis. Uriah went to meet with the Quincy while Ichigo kept an eye on Skin, manipulating what he watched using what the man says. Soon, Uriah signaled Ichigo that it was time to leave. Letting the illusion play in a way that wouldn't arouse suspicions, Ichigo left as the Quincy said they were done training. The cousins met up on the roof of Ichigo's home. Bastard! Uriah cursed as they landed, is Hein coming up to find out what happened? So, Wywak wasted 200 Quincy lives in an effort to kill you after you defeated Aizen. Recognizing the losses, he's now sending out some of his forces to gather new soldiers. The lost, weary, and broken from all around the world that he'd infuse with his soul and empower. Bambietta predicts that they'd at least double in numbers as a result. Even if some couldn't be credible threats, they'd empower Wywak when he recalls his soul from them. Well, it was only a matter of time before something like this happened. Is Hein said, already planning his report. Aizen also planned on strengthening his army. I'm more surprised that it took Wywak this long to announce it. We can increase our patrols around Japan, but I'm not sure about the rest of the world if he expands his reach. We'll have to think of something while we still have the time. Uriah said as he continued with his report. As for that new guy, his name is Askinnak Elivar. Sternritter D and one of Wywak Scoot's staffel, meaning one of his best is watching Bazby and the others. Before they were walking on eggshells, now they're barefoot on broken glass. He said, emphasizing their precarious situation. They're stopping contact with us until they can be sure they'd be safe, from Wywak and his assassins. This was only going to last for so long, we can't be upset about this. Ichigo said, trying to keep them from getting frustrated over losing their main intel suppliers. Instead, we need to focus on how to continue strengthening our own defenses for when the time comes. The two nodded in agreement, though decided to hold off on continuing this discussion for later. Give them some time to think things through and plan appropriately. As they left to get to bed, Ichigo stayed on the rooftop and gazed at the sky. This isn't going to be easy. But you are not going to win. He thought in defiance, steeling his resolve for the coming war. He was brought out of his thoughts when his phone buzzed again, this time from Yamamoto. Yes, sensei? Ichigo asked, only to get someone other than the captain commander. Ichigo, I have a proposition for you, lad. Ichibe Hyasub said to him. Las noches, meeting room. Ichigo strode out through the halls of his palace, the latest conversation with the old monk and his master still playing in his mind. If he was going to do what they suggested, he needed to make sure things in Hueco Mundo would stay stabilized. He wasn't expecting peace, he was sure any Minos Grande cocky enough would attack with that beacon calling them, but he wanted to make sure his side would stay in control and remain loyal. The doors opened to reveal the new meeting room, a single throne in front of a curved table where his strongest Arrancar assembled. Jin stood at the foot of the throne, waiting for the king of the realm. Ichigo immediately flashed to his seat, facing the hollows. Sit. He ordered, prompting them all to do so in their chairs around the table. The round table. In Arthurian lore it was meant to be a symbol, a way of saying that the king and his knights were equal and none stood higher than the others. A nice gesture, but that didn't change a simple fact. That the king was still the king. You are all equal before me and I will hold no single one as greater than the others, regardless of power. He said, pointing to the table they sat at. I took this throne by being the strongest, gave you place in this kingdom in exchange for your lives, demanded your loyalty for the promise of a new world for you. Looking back on it, I seem more like a tyrant than a benevolent ruler, don't I? Still better than Aizen if you ask me. Grimjo said aloud. He did all the same things. Difference is, it was all for him. Not for anyone else. Thank you, Grimjo. Ichigo returned, straightening up as he continued. I'd rather not be a tyrant though, but I know the law of the land here in Hueco Mundo. The strongest is the one that rules. The hybrid removed some of his seals and unleashed a crushing spiritual pressure for just a second before reciting himself. Was that enough of a reminder? Why would that be necessary? Sairachi asked, gasping for breath from the sudden assault. The rest of the Arrancar looked up to him expectantly, hoping for a reasonable answer from their ruler. I did that to avoid needing to kill anyone, he answered. Soon I will have to disembark on a journey. One that will last a good while. I do not want to return to find a civil war has ravaged my kingdom, and I lose any of you in the chaos. If I need to fight for my throne again, I would have to be far less merciful than I'd like to be. Where are you going and will you be fine? Ulquiorra asked, concerned for the one he swore his loyalty to. I will be fine, Ulquiorra. But I will be troubled if I need to worry about all of you while I am gone. So, here is my royal decree, while I am gone Jin is in charge and you are to focus on getting stronger by either training yourselves or by gathering more to our ranks. Am I understood? He asked, watching each Arrancar nod their heads as his gaze washed over them. Thank you. That eases my mind. Now I believe there is a matter of rewarding those that came to my aid. Dordoni, Halibel, come forth. He ordered, prompting the two to get up and kneel before his throne. Have you thought about your rewards? Mireille, I ask that I have greater strength to serve you. Dordoni said, standing before his lord. Very well. Jin. Ichigo called out as the silver-haired fox pulled out the jar of yummy pills and giving one to Dordoni. He swallowed the concentrated power of the former Ciro Espada and a pulse was sent out to show an increase in his power. Now, train yourself to attain your own segunda etapa. The hybrid ordered, glancing to Ulquiorra and giving the silent order to assist the man. Yes, Mireille. Dordoni said with a bow before returning to his seat. Halibel rose and looked to the hybrid. If I may be so bold, my request should be kept in private. She said, Ichigo thinking he saw a faint blush on what he could see of her face not hidden by that collar. Please come to my palace later. Very well. You have your orders. Dismissed. Chapter 88, Separation for Training. With Ichigo. What's next on the agenda? Ichigo asked himself as he finished dressing and exited Halibel's palace, the shark following behind him. Should I check up on Starkey? Spar with Grimjo? He came to a stop as Halibel's 3 Fraxion appeared before him. Is something the matter, girls? Jin says he needs you in the throne room. Mila Rose answered, stepping forward. All knights are appearing in attendance as well. Ichigo looked back to Halibel, thinking to what Ichibe told him about his future training. Fine. Is everyone there? He asked, getting a nod from the Amazoness. Excellent. Let's go. He said before flashing to the meeting room, Halibel and the Trace Bestias following behind. True to Mila's report, the room housed the many Arrancar of Las Noches. The moment he spotted Jin, he made his way toward the captain. What's the news? The head captain said to tell you that everything is ready, and to have a maximum of 2 days for yourself before you go. The silver-haired fox said. I have a feeling this should be an interesting journey for you. They wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't going to be productive. Ichigo returned, opening a garganta to the Soul Society. Halibel? Nilil? Want to come along? He asked the current 2 strongest female Arrancar. Yay. Field trip. Nilil cheered excitedly as she leaped into the portal, Halibel being silent as she followed. Ichigo turned back to the Arrancar, looking to their king expectantly. When I return, I plan to be a stronger and better person. Ichigo answered them. And I want you all to be the same. Stronger and better. All of Las Noches. I expect great things when I return. And with that, he joined Nell and Tia and shot toward Soul Society. The journey went by in a flash and soon they exited the emptiness of the void and into the realm of Soul Reapers. They landed in the courtyard of the Squad 1 meeting hall, where Ichigo was promptly punched in the face. What the hell is this, leaving to train, nonsense? Tatsuki demanded, rubbing her sore knuckles while Urayu, Chad, and Orium watched from a distance and tried to calm down the Arrancar. I thought the point of you being transferred to Yamamoto's squad was so he could oversee your training. Now you have to disappear for who knows how long for a different training. It's not like we're innocent, Tatsuki. Urayu chimed in, being a voice of reason among the group. We're being assigned to travel the world and experience it for ourselves. Same thing. Yeah, but at least we can keep in touch. He's going completely off the grid. Tatsuki returned and likely would have continued before Kojiro interrupted. If you're done, the head captain is waiting. He said with a firm tone as the kids got up and proceeded up the stairs. With Ichigo's permission, Nell and Halibel were allowed to explore the Siridi while he went to the meeting. Inside the meeting hall was Yamamoto and Ichigo Hyasub. There is no denying that you've accomplished many feats that most would deem suicidal or impossible. Genri Yusai started. Invading Soul Society, defying ancient laws and traditions that have held for 2,000 years, storming the realm of hollows, stopping the destruction of the world and balance of souls time and time again, all you've done with your friends and allies at your back. That must change. This surprised the human teens. While admirable to have such faith and trust in your allies, you have the idea of dropping whatever you're doing to help them should they be in trouble. Ichigo continued. But what if you are in a situation where you can't afford distractions? Where you can't look back and help? Where you absolutely cannot interfere? The group looked to each other, knowing that they'd likely defy all that in charge in to save the lives of their allies. Shinigami are not meant to be heroes or judges, Yamamoto resumed, we are balancers. Meant to keep the flow of souls and reincarnation intact, lest reality collapses into ruin. While preferable to avoid it, if it means destroying a great evil or threat to that balance, then you must be ready to sacrifice lives. Your allies or your own. Yamamoto looked to Ichigo. My boy, you are ready to throw yourself into the eye of the storm because you know you are powerful. So strong that you believe that only you should be the sacrifice because you can prevent it. You must be put into a spot where you cannot involve yourself in the affairs of the living, only the matters of the dead. Ichigo wanted to protest that there was nothing wrong with what he's done, but recognized that he always threw himself into the fire. The only reason he wasn't involved with the Regei was because he was out of commission. The rest of you need to learn to struggle without the idea of your friends coming to your rescue and vice versa. Ichigo added, looking to the rest. All of you are to travel the world, see new things, feel new experiences, and grow as people. The rest of the teens nodded, Ichigo noticing that they didn't get nearly as much detail as to what their training is to be. You can begin in another 2 days. Till then, enjoy yourselves. The monk said with a smile. I recommend that you visit your friends and teachers, Ichigo. Yamamoto advised before dismissing the group. Squad 12, Mod Soul Research Department. Download nearing completion. Nimue said as she and Urahara kept an eye on the computer monitors while Nozomi slept inside a Reishi tube with a helmet attached to her head, giving her all the knowledge and research data she would need in her new station. Down the hall were the muffled screams of agony as Mayuri drained Keijiro's Ozbrain and Zanpakuto spirit into the system that downloaded everything. Soon his cries ended and seconds after that Nimue announced the completion of the project. Let her out. Urahara ordered, leading Nimue to drain the tube and open it for Nozomi to fall out of. Kisuke caught her and carried her to Nimue. Get her dressed and moved to a bed. Run diagnostics and tell us when she wakes up. Nimue nodded and took the sleeping Nozomi away. Once she was out, Mayuri came in with Ichigo following behind. Ichigo, I'm so glad you're here. Indeed, he's so lucky to have such a rare opportunity. Mayuri hissed out, jealous of what Ichigo is getting to do. A whole new world of research opportunities and they're sending a super-powered child with no dash, he continued to rant, which Urahara and Ichigo ignored. Right, while he's doing that, I wanted to give you a care package for your trip. Kisuke said, pulling Ichigo along to his office with Mayuri following. Now, let's see. Ah! He exclaimed as he pulled out a really thick carrying case. Now, like Mayuri is complaining about, research and information is key to learning about your enemy. So here is my assignment to you. He said before opening the case, folding out more and more. Chemistry, dissection, engineering sets, computer for data storage and analysis, and a recorder for your thoughts. He held out a voice recorder the size of a pen, pushing the button and playing the message inside. I guess now is as good a time as any. Congratulations on graduating. It cheered in Kisuke's voice. My high school, college, or from Yama's training. Ichigo asked as Kisuke compacted everything again. Any of them, it's just more practical now with what's to come. I want you to learn everything you can about where you will be. The scientist answered as he gave Ichigo his gift. Mayuri came next to Ichigo, still scowling, holding up his own case. I expect you to use these and record the results, he said, revealing the contents to be various chemicals and minerals along with a recipe book for the various drugs and poisons he's devised. Thanks, Ichigo said. I think, he thought as he held the two cases. These should give me something to do in my downtime, he said before leaving the labs, heading for the Kido Corps barracks next. Shino Academy. Still can't believe that he's leaving, Karen growled, waiting for her next class to start. Yuzu and her were in the new Hollow Combat classroom, and both still reeling from the news Ichigo gave them before he ran off to Hueco Mundo. Ishine tried to control the damage, but none of the women in the Kurosaka family were happy about Ichigo leaving for wherever it was he was going. Yuzu's eyes were still a little puffy from crying. The only benefit the girls had from this was that, for once, everyone in class left them alone. Just you wait, Ichi and I. When you get back, we'll be the strongest in the school. Yeah. Yeah. Yuzu said, cheering up ever so slightly. Let's do it, Karen. Just then the door slammed open, revealing a man with messed up, spiky, reddish-brown hair. Okay, my name's Kano Ashido and I'll be your new teacher. He introduced himself, followed by Yin and Yang. These two are my assistants and welcomes to Hollow Combat. I was once part of a unit that chased a group of Hollows through a Gargantat and into Hueco Mundo, where I stayed for centuries fighting and killing Hollows non-stop. Those are my credentials. You will listen and follow my instruction, and you will become stronger Soul Reapers. Understood, he said, hard and firm as he scanned the crowd, immediately identifying Ichigo's sisters. They held the most determined gaze in their eyes, daring him to break them in this course. He could only smile. Good, then let's begin. Yin, Yang, bring in the first test. With that, the two Aaron car pulled in a cage full of Hollows. Kido Corps Base. Ichigo went into the halls of the Spell Masters of Soul Society, hearing a faint hum in the back of his mind. He was looking for Tessai and Haki, but the calls of the Hogyaka was beginning to distract him, and before he realized it he found himself in the storage room where that sphere was locked away. It slept but still called to him, wishing to reunite with the one it was linked to. He was brought out of his trance by a tap on his shoulder from Tessai. It's enough that you have all the power that you do, Ichigo, the Kido Master said. You don't need it for where you're going. Tell it to sleep. Ichigo nodded, refusing to rely on the sphere unless as a last resort. Seconds later, with his intent feeding it, the hums silenced and the Hogyaka was back in its deep rest. Very good. Now let's go, he said as they left the storage to head back to his office. Unfortunately, Ichigo, the only Kido arts left for you to learn are forbidden spells and the hidden arts, neither of which can be passed down without the permission of the Central 46 and the Royal Guard respectively. He then pulled out a pair of thick scrolls. Fortunately, that useless body of bureaucrats is now gone and the old monk insists that you learn all you can. That's oddly convenient, Ichigo replied as he took the scrolls. Then there was a thunderous explosion that rocked the very foundations of the Sirite. What was that? Ichigo shouted in alarm, seeing a giant tower of flame in the distance. I'm sure it's just the head captain taking care of a few pests, Tessai quickly said. Anyways, you should visit your Yuaki next. She had something she wanted to teach you. Squad 2 Training Grounds. Ichigo made his way to the sparring fields of the 2nd Division, finding Yuaki watching Swaifon and Tatsuki sparring with each other. Yuaki noticed him, smiling sweetly to her student, before flashing in front of him with her fist raised. The hybrid was unable to block the sudden attack that sent him flying back and away from the martial artist. He tumbled for a bit before recovering, just in time to receive another flurry of punches from the dark-skinned noble. Been a while since we did this, he thought as he blocked and dodged half of the attacks, while absorbing the other half. She's not holding back, is she? He grunted in pain as she laid another blow into his gut, dampened by his blood. The second she backed away, he threw his own punches. Yoriyuki caught them and used the fists as a springboard to jump off and away from the hybrid, Ichigo dashing after her. He managed to reach her before she touched the ground and unleashed his own attacks, slightly slower than hers but with more power behind them. She did a better job at avoiding the attacks, but he managed to get a few in. The last kick he threw she blocked with her crossed arms but was sent flying back, tearing a deep gouge in the ground as she stayed on her feet. "That's enough," she said, shaking her arms to relieve the throbbing. "Old man's been doing good in teaching you. But, there is one thing he can't teach you. Ready, girls?" She asked her two students as they stood to Yoriyuki's sides. The Kaizen uniform of the Onmitsukido commander is without a back or sleeves because of highest level of Hakuda. She explained as they began concentrating their Reishi. "It's called Shunko," she said as they exploded with power, Ichigo recognizing the high-density Kido flowing into their arms and legs. Channeling Kido into the limbs. Ichigo guessed, analyzing the display as they powered down. "I can see how it'd destroy anything on your back and arms. How am I supposed to use that? I wear this Ryotsu suppressant suit for a good reason, Yoriyuki. There's been a lot of work in that," Swyfon said, presenting him with a new suit and Shiakusho. Kiryu Hakaifun of the Zero Squad worked with Shuten Meru and Kisuk to weave a new fabric. Mixing the idea of Zaraki's seal, this will devour your Reishi and clothe you. If it gets damaged, it will use your Reishi to restore itself. Shunko is very powerful and very dangerous, Ichigo. Yoriyuki continued as Ichigo took his new Shiakusho. "I want you to practice it, but try to never need it." "Understood," Ichigo returned. "Thanks, girls. Now I have to get to Rangiku. She said she wanted me for something," he said, not noticing Tatsuki's blush. "With Urayu and Chad. Think he still doesn't know?" Urayu asked as he and Chad prepared their bags, filled with clothes and other gadgets for their mission. Orium and Tatsuki returned to the world of the living to recover a certain someone for the last day while Rukia was with the two Eren car. He'd never agree if he did. That's for certain. Chad agreed as he took some medicine that Urahara made to help recover from his use of the now forbidden power in his Fullbring, thinking back to getting these mission orders. "You said it yourself, that Wiwak was sending out Quincy to gather new recruits. So the Captain Commander is sending you, Orium, Tatsuki, me and the other living Fullbringers out to try and stop them. What I don't quite understand is why he said, Shinigami are locked to this land, like they were restrained to Japan alone." Urayu continued, trying to figure out what it could mean. Maybe that's why Wiwak accomplished as much as he did. The Godei couldn't get to him. The question is why? Isn't it because the Soul King is here? Chad guessed. Maybe there's something else. 2 days later, Ichigo stood before a modified Senkaimon, one that was designed to take him to where he was going. He was wearing his new sealing clothes, a ring that was supposed to stabilize his powers to an appropriate level, and a Kido seal that was holding all the stuff that his teachers gave him to use. Urayu, Chad, Orium, and Tatsuki had to leave, travel the world, before him. He said his goodbyes as they left Soul Society. Now all of his remaining friends in the Godei stood there with him as he prepared for his journey. "Remember, Ichigo, you are there to learn. Not to intervene," Yamamoto reminded him. "I understand, sensei," he said as the Senkaimon opened. "Tia, Nell, tell those knights of mine to behave themselves." The Eren car nodded. Rookie Deshi started before said Soul Reaper pulled him down for a kiss. When they separated, Rangiku did the same, with Senna jumping on him for hers after that. "I'm so proud of that boy," Ishine said, earning a slap from Masaki. "Take care of yourself, son." "I will," Ichigo said, dashing headfirst into the Senkaimon. He felt ready for anything it could throw at him. Check the description for the links to the author.